Welcome, everyone, to another Industry and Transition Zoom call. I'm very happy to have my friend Brian Hamburger here with us today, the CEO of MarketCounsel. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well, Tony. How are you?
I'm fine. I don't have a hirsute situation, no beard for me, but still looking good. And I want to say we just had a wardrobe change, and you look good, but not great. There was a lot of effort put on the shirt, and we were going to be live. But, sweater's kind of dignified. I appreciate it. The audience appreciates the effort for dressing. So thank you for that.
And I know next time you'll have me sweater sans beard.
But I like the beard. I think the beard's a good look. I
Fair,
haven't done it yet. Keep it. I'll be the arbiter. Just call me every time when you want to change or put a beard on.
You will be my stylist. Yeah, for sure.
You got problems if I'm your stylist. I want to kind of get right into it. Talk about some of the things. I mean, let's scare people. There are a lot of you read AdvisorHub, you see a lot of stupid FAs out there that do things. We can't fix stupid, right? But we can help somebody who maybe is ignorant of what I can do, what I can't do, and wants to do the right thing but maybe doesn't have the right advice. So before doing anything, I would say talk to somebody who can help you, right? That's just smart. But if we're speaking specifically of sort of recruiting, I know that's really in your wheelhouse and how people move. We've had this, COVID-19 unbelievable, change in our business that's turned out to not be, what you would have thought. It's counterintuitive. The recruiting would be affected. It would be negative, but it's not. And so what are some of the, people are moving and people are understanding that this is a new world. What are you seeing in this sort of new world that are sort of maybe some pitfalls or things people can avoid, good practices, bad practices type thing?
So I'll tell you, I don't think of it as stupid, but I do agree that they should talk to somebody who's
stupid. Let's just
who's been through this before.
There are those guys, Brian, that are Thursday before they leave, that are at the copy machine copying their clients' information.
It's not stupid because, listen, I've spent 20 plus years, right? I hate to admit it, but I spent 20 plus years dealing with this. And when you break it down, right, it tends to be, maybe it's confidence, maybe it's ego, maybe it's cockiness, right? And no domain expertise whatsoever, right? And so it's hard because these are really, really intelligent, smart individuals in their trade who just have no experience and no understanding of what they're about to get into. And so,
one thing you said was confidence. What's interesting to me about that is it's also sometimes a lack of confidence. Like they don't know how much their clients actually love them. That all this stuff they do, they don't.
That's true.
If you're a good advisor, your clients like you. They're gonna do what you want.
So can we agree that maybe it's misplaced confidence?
I'm sticking with stupidity, but you can go ahead.
But that leads to just about all of the problems that we ever run into. It's the advisors who don't even know the questions to ask. Who say, well, I didn't even know that was going to be a problem, right? There are so few, as on a percentage basis, relative basis, that are doing these things to, with nefarious intent. Many think that they're justified in doing it. They've long believed that they own the client relationship, that the client has duty, has loyalty towards them. And so they don't think that they're doing anything wrong. And so they've kind of been just lulled into this belief that that legally that'll somehow hold water. And we all know who's whether you've spent time in law school or you spend time reading AdvisorHub, you quickly learn that the legal world and the real world are often disconnected from one another. But where COVID and the current pandemic has really played in is in a couple of areas. Number one, if advisors weren't confident about the depth of their relationship with their clients then, they sure ought to be now, because they're more connected. Most advisors I speak to are more connected to their clients today than they previously had been. And relatively speaking, if you think about how difficult it is to build a relationship from scratch, it's almost impossible, right? So the idea of a firm poaching their clients and trying to make a personal connection with their clients over these Zoom calls is almost impossible, right? So they've really increased their distance between their relationship and the firm's relationship during this pandemic. But I think on the flip side, they've been lulled into a false sense of security. I think they think, I'm working from home. I'm outside of the firm's supervision. I can kind of do what I need to during the day. What they don't realize is that firms are is an arms race going on right now. And these firms are stepping up their supervision and surveillance of the activities that people are doing in a work from home environment. And they haven't caught up to what they had back in the office, but they're getting better.
So as far as that, though, give some specific examples of what you see firms doing in terms of this heightened, supervision. I'd be interested in that.
So some of the folks who have been lifelong employees at firms, I don't think they necessarily understand some of the technology that they're using. So they don't understand that even though they're using their web browser on the computer that's located in their home, I don't think they understand that web browser is reporting data back to the firm in terms of their history and their activity. I don't think they understand that voice over IP telephone, while it's sitting in your home office or even your dining room, is recording the telephone calls that you're making in and out by going through a central system. I think that it's hard for firms to make sense of all the clicks and the calls initially, but over time they start to take a look at what that data tells them. They start to pick up on trends, and they really start to be able to figure out what people are doing. Right? It's hard when you're at home. Your sole means of work and communication are the clicks on your screen or the telephone calls that you're making, and so it's a lot easier to track for firms. It's a lot easier to track that activity because they're not offline conversations, and firms are getting wise to it.
How are you seeing firms use this information now? Are they preemptively sometimes going after advisors and saying, hey, you're fired because of whatever, or are they?
We haven't seen that yet. Yeah, I think that's further in the curve, right? Once they start to accumulate the data, once they start to review the data, hey, what do these departures have in common? At what point should we have seen this? What are the commonalities amongst these data sets? They'll do that, right? Because they first started having people. If you look at it, they first started having people scan in and out of the office their magnetic key cards. Right. And at first it was just a security measure, right? It was better than the lock and key. But over time, they started to get intelligent and pick up on patterns about what hours people work and what changes to their work habits would indicate a departure, weekend hours. And so they started utilizing that data. We saw that over time. We saw the same thing with USB memory cards, right? Where at first it was just a convenient means for people to just download information, bring something home. But then over time, firms started saying, oh, let's monitor this information and see what the MAC address is of this USB key card or USB flash drive, and see what data is being put onto those drives. Let's monitor print activity, right? No one used to look at print activity, right? So firms first start to capture data, and then they start to analyze it and figure out, what does it tell them? So we know that they're capturing that data because following termination, we'll get questions with regards to their work from home activity about activities that they were doing during the day, which point to the fact that the firms are looking at their duty of loyalty of, hey, we had this person on payroll. Have they been working for us throughout the day? Have they been doing their job?
And, other issues in COVID that you see that could, come up, obviously that's one piece of it, right? Which is pretty scary because big brother's watching and people, I don't think about that. What about other things? I mean, there are issues with talking to clients, over Zoom. Are there issues with, one thing, of course, is that I'm in my office, so I can make a call. Let's hope you're using a different phone, maybe. I can receive calls from recruiters or other firms, and, there's no one looking over my shoulder directly anyway.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what leads into that false sense of security, right? Because there's this appearance that you have complete independence and freedom and that nobody's watching. But then lo and behold, there's this portal you use to connect with the rest of the world that's capturing that data. So I think it just, the fact that you can run to your kitchen and grab a snack lulls you into thinking that, oh, well, the coast is clear, right? Whereas when you do this stuff at a firm, you have a natural paranoia, right? It's, hey, close my door. It's, let me take this on my cell phone. It's, there's a real clear bifurcation of what you need to have in place in order to maintain that separation. And so we're seeing it at home. It's not that it's impossible, right? You can have your own computer sitting side by side, your work computer. You can have your own cell phone still. It's just people get a little sloppy. They get a little lazy. It's all right there in front of them. And it would seem that it's unmonitored and free to use, but nothing's free.
What so what other challenge? I mean, there are some things that are good practices. There are things that are happening that are positive. During COVID, maybe give advisors an opportunity to think and to look around and see what the options are. I think there's also a chance for some of them when they look at an independent option. So some advisors were first of all, start with some people are always going to be better off in an office. They're going to want to be in an office, and
sure.
A big wirehouse office is great for some people. It really is the right answer for a lot of people. But for a lot of people have been told you can't work from home, it doesn't work. And a lot of folks are saying, well, geez, this is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and I think I think that's what independence is all about, right? What independence really tells you is that there's no right answer, right? There will be firms following this pandemic who will decide we want to continue working from home. Maybe we'll have some set meetings on a regular basis. Maybe we want to have an entirely virtual company, and all of that's okay. There will be others that say we want that same type of look and feel as a traditional wirehouse, right? We want that Class A space. We want to be able to pull into the office park, and that's okay too. So really, what independence is about, among other things, is about building a firm that you feel best reflects the interests and the demand of your clients and your staff, so that you can really live in alignment with those values.
I think clients, you mentioned clients, and I've written about this, we've talked about this with other CEOs, but clients are more accepting now of this Zoom technology. And it's, I was talking with the CEO of Kestra in the last call, and he thinks real estate's not going to go away. For firms that he has 60,000 square feet, but it's in 2,000 square foot clumps. And I talked to another CEO privately who was looking at 80,000 square feet in Manhattan. Now he's going down to 30 because he just doesn't. They don't need it anymore.
Right, but do the math. But let me just cut you off. Do the math, Tony. Commercial real estate, is likely to implode. I mean, think about those numbers. So of course it's not going to go away. All right, but the demand is plummeting for commercial real estate. So Zoom has the acceptability of connecting with people by video, by phone, has just skyrocketed during this pandemic. And I don't think it's immediately going to dissipate. I think people are more than happy to transmit documents and information electronically, so long as it's secure, and connect with their advisor one-on-one in a dedicated space like this. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And if you look at the impact that that's going to have on commercial real estate, it is going to be huge. Whether you are occupying 60,000 square feet, 600,000 square feet, or like us, I mean, we occupy about 12,000 square feet, and our demand post-pandemic is probably going to be 30% of that, right? That's a huge impact on commercial real estate in the aggregate.
We're getting rid of half our space. Because we're just getting a space in Manhattan, and that's it. We're going to get rid of the other stuff. So
right, and so maybe the most recent trend of open offices goes away, but we'll probably revert more to the hot swappable type offices and workspaces, along with meeting space, right? So people can aggregate and get together once this is all over, of course.
Yeah, my expectation is that the independent space will be innovative in this, and depending on the firm and the type, you'll have some, a nice meeting room, and everyone else is in sort of a, looks like a sales desk, like or trading desk kind of, environment. And some folks want to come in, or they'll just come in for meetings. I think there'll just be a lot of, we'll have to see what it ends up like. Different firms will have different answers, for it.
But at the end of the day, I think almost there's no firm out there that's saying, how do we expand our physical footprint? Right, I think every single firm out there is looking to reduce.
There's a lot of firms that have 10-year leases that are stuck. There's a lot of,
That's right, and that's why you don't see the immediate, that's why you don't see the immediate decline, is because of these long-term leases. They've got 10, 15, 20-year leases that they are what they are, and they're going to make the best of them. But you see, you'll see plenty of firms that are going to run off, and no one's jumping to renew their existing space at the same rates.
So that's kind of things that we'll take with us as far as, change goes. What about other legal issues that you think are sort of best practices that people ought to be following, during COVID? So obviously the movement between firms has continued, and looks like it's not only continuing, but it's sort of gaining more and more momentum. And people are seeing that you can leave during COVID, and with recruiting, there's usually a 4-month lag or something like that. So I think we're going to see some of that, and whether it happens this year or some people are saving it for the end of the year, after the holidays. What are some best practices during a COVID time that you think advisors should be looking at?
Well, I remember when you guys when the pandemic first hit. You and a few other publications were writing and focusing on the chilling effect, right, that the pandemic would have on movement. And I was quick to warn you, like, not so fast, right? We've got a lot in the hopper that are continuing along the way. Maybe their plans have been disrupted for 30, 60, 90 days, but there's going to be a substantial pickup as we move forward throughout the year. You just can't stop this movement to independence. One of the trends that we're seeing that probably is increasing more significantly than anything else is the use of third parties in this transition. So, we sit in a unique place. We enjoy the attorney-client privilege with our clients. We obviously maintain, a high degree of confidentiality along the way, but there's been a trend to utilize third-party service providers who fall outside of that bubble. And I think people are doing it in a rather cavalier way, right? They've got no agency. They've got no employment arrangement. It's just, hey, help me with this. Help me manipulate data. Help me fill out these spreadsheets. I think some of the broker-dealers and custodians are all too happy to offload that responsibility to an unknowing third party. But we're seeing the regulators ask a lot of really hard questions about, what is this third party doing with this data, right? How are they entitled to have this data, especially pre-break? Where are they registered? How are clients insured of their confidentiality? What is their relationship here? And so we're seeing a lot of cracks in the foundation there, and it's giving us some big concern, some significant concern. We just saw over the last few years, we saw a couple significant independent broker-dealers have actions brought against them for receiving data from brokers in advance of the transition. And so now shouldn't surprise you that they're now offloading that to third parties. It's a problem. It's a problem waiting to happen.
Well, that does. I mean, I guess, I hadn't thought of it that way, but of course that's an issue. I mean, a lot of these are, I don't want to say they're fly-by-night firms, but they're small firms that are just trying to, help out. They're doing paperwork. They're not necessarily bonded or in any way, in any way holding,
Yeah. And so, we've heard all the arguments, they'll say, oh, I'm acting as an agent for John, right? John's a registered rep at this firm. He's employed. He can't appoint you as an agent, right? It's so
that's judge kind of thing.
Yeah, none of the arguments really hold water, and so the regulators are raising concerns about this. But to your point, there are a lot of one-man shops, right? There are a lot of one-man, one-woman shops who are fulfilling this role. Financial regulators, don't traditionally go after firms of that size, absent some type of fraud or gross negligence. But in the aggregate, they will take action. And so we're cautioning our advisors about that. They often overstate, just like you said earlier, how they understate the confidence that they have in or underestimate the confidence they have in their client relationships. I think they also overestimate the amount of data that they need to bring to their new firm.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, a phone number is good because that's,
Right.
I mean, you're going to send them documents, they're going to sign them, and that, I've done this so many years, and it's always the good brokers. If you hire a guy who's a jerk or a woman who's a jerk, their clients are jerks. Period, and it's going to be a problem. So you better know them. We got to have a no asshole policy, right? And so the same thing with anything that you're doing, you know what I mean? If somebody's a mess, you really got to look at, is this person really good to hire? I do want to talk about one other thing. It sort of always bothers me about the whole TRO thing. So I, came up in this business. TROs were the way we did business. So you just expected them. They were part of prior to the protocol. That
was my Friday night activity for many years.
Right. So, but the unabashed, cynicism that I find in the TRO world today, where one firm, it's a wirehouse, that takes advisors from the same firm that they're suing for doing what they're doing every day anyway. It's just how do judges not look at this and say this is the stupidest thing in the world? Or how is this guy taking his clients, especially in this day and age, especially COVID, when I have a LinkedIn and I've got everybody's number in my cell phone? Are you freaking kidding me? How can you not? How is that possibly, deleterious to an enormous firm or to any firm? And there's nothing you can do about it because I'm on social media. And we've seen some judges push back on it and say, literally, I think the one we reported on, 2 weeks ago, the judge said, how are these phone numbers somehow, and I don't want to name the wirehouse because I don't remember it specifically, but it was one of the wirehouses. How is this in any way hurt blank wirehouse? This guy's got the phone with his client. So, you feel like there's plenty of these judgments that are around, but there's also plenty of judges who, if a big firm comes to them and says, hey, can you do this for me? They say, okay, which is really riding roughshod over the rights of an advisor. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's it continues to vary from district to district. And, as we get into local courts, they all will look at this differently. I will tell you, that many, many years ago, I was in the Southern District of New York and had exactly that situation where in the morning we were in court representing one party against a wirehouse, or a wirehouse against our party, and in the afternoon it was the exact inverse case against a different group of reps, and the judge did exactly that. The judge sat up there and scratched his head and said, I just don't know how you guys live with yourself. Like, how are you coming in and effectively swapping arguments in the afternoon? It's not even novel arguments. You guys are basically just trading sides. And that was before the broker protocol came to fruition. So if you think about it now, the protocol for broker recruiting has substantially decreased the number of those cases. You don't see multiple cases where opposite sides are switching in the same courthouse on the same day. Where you do find aberrations is where we find ourselves heading out to Kansas, right? Or going to Oklahoma, where that judge may not have seen a lot of these issues come up recently. And so they are asking probing questions. And many that are looking at it with a more modern lens are asking just that. They're saying, how is this a trade secret, right? How is the fact that this person is leaving and they're merely bringing some basic information along with them, even though you don't participate in the broker protocol, how is this problematic? And so it's really interesting. And I do find it fascinating after all these years.
From the problematic from the point of view of the client, because how is letting the client have a choice a trade secret or a problem for you?
Well, that's just it, right? So
they should be able to go. So
perhaps I glossed over the logic, but when you couple regulations like what you call regulation best interest, right? You're calling it best interest for advisors, right? When you have a fiduciary obligation to act in the client's best interest. If that's the prevailing modus operandi, right, then how do we go back to these restrictive covenants and say, well, yeah, we have an obligation as a firm to act in the client's best interest, but that stops when it comes to what advisor they want to work with. No, that's ridiculous, right? People want to be able to make that argument. At the same time, companies should have a right to protect their own assets, right, and protect their own interests. And so a lot of good analysis is being done of late by judges where they're looking, you want to call something a trade secret. The question is, do you treat it as a trade secret, right? Do you make sure that that information isn't easy to just to take out of the office, to walk out the door, to be visible by everybody?
How is a phone number or a client's email a trade secret when we live in a world that's based on social media? Well, these clients are friends of these people. They're going to see them. They're going to talk to them. They're going to. It's ridiculous to think that they're not. And so I just find it hard to make the case with a straight face,
right? But Tony,
when they're doing it on the other side.
Right, but Tony, the campaign is different today than it was before, right? Before, when you're talking about that TRO that we would see, of course, we'd see the same request for a TRO every Friday when an advisor transitioned, and you guys would report on it, very routinely. But at that time, it was also a campaign of letters, right? Physical letters that went out to clients, a call campaign. Things are different now, right? All clients have their advisor's cell phone numbers. They're all connected with them on various social outlets. And so now merely an announcement that they've left and they're starting the new firm often creates enough demand that we don't have to engage in that traditional outbound campaign. If you look at a lot of restrictive covenants, they're written to state that the advisor cannot initiate contact for purposes of soliciting that client. It says nothing about what happens when the client initiates contact or when the advisor contacts them for other reasons. There's a lot of legitimate ways in which an advisor and client remain connected post-departure that really circumvents a lot of the restrictive covenants that are currently in place.
Which shows why you need to get good advice on this thing before you embark.
Well, I would hope so, because we don't have indentured servitude anymore in this country, thank God, right? And so there is a path out for everybody, right? Nobody has to remain employed where they are. And no one has to leave, by the way, right? Just because you're reading about all these folks moving to independence, to your point, it's not right for everybody, right? There are some people who are well suited for a wirehouse environment, for all the services that the wirehouse provides and affords them, for the office space that they give them. It's a good arrangement. It's not, this is not a good versus evil thing, right? But for those that want to move over to independence, there's a path for them to do that. Unfortunately, you end up writing about too many that just want to kind of blaze their own path, and that's often not the way to go.
Not news otherwise, Brian.
But it does make for interesting reading.
Broker has a great day does not really move news,
I get it. So, I totally get it.
Well, I guess look, we've gone even over where we should have been. Obviously, we could talk a lot more about this, but let's save it for the next call. And really appreciate you being here. And,
no problem. So just let me know in advance what you want me wearing for the next call.
I will. We'll talk about clothes and you have some questions written down. Because I don't like to write them down.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always great to talk.
Shit.